Hello, everyone. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and part of my purpose is to spread light through healing as an expression of God's love. Peace and love to you, and welcome to this Sunday Hope and Healing session, where we're endeavoring to bring encouragement, to bring hope, and to bring actual healing that we do through a methodology referred to as Transcending the Matrix, which is a holistic-based approach to healing that addresses every aspect of a person's beingness. I know that we've been dealing with some interesting times lately. There are all kinds of things that have been going on in the news cycle. I'm not going to speak to the specifics of those things right now. But in a lot of situations, there's a lot of fear that's running amok. There's a lot of fear mongering. There are a lot of things that are being politicized. There's a lot going on that for many of us impacts our sense of well-being. It impacts our peace of mind. It may create some anxiety, maybe some discomfort. And so we're going to address that in a way today, okay? We're going to actually do healing today to strengthen us to ensure that love wins. To ensure that love wins. And I know that there is a lot in this matrix of third dimensional beliefs of separation and limitation that are pointing to a lot of evidence of separation, a lot of evidence of discord. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot that we're being bombarded with from an informational standpoint that speaks to what appears to be a definite reality of separation and discord and chaos and confusion, and even a lot of those things being sown intentionally by some people, and some people who are in positions of significant influence in this 3D world, if you will. Okay. And there's actually a lot going on that really triggers for a lot of us some concerns in terms of what our limitations are as far as being able to do good in the world, as far as what our limitations are as it relates to affecting change. But here's the truth. Here's the truth. There is a greater truth beyond what things look like on the level of appearances. In this third dimensional matrix of separation and limitation, the primary frequency of this 3D matrix is fear. Okay? Fear, that which can keep us locked into a fear-based state where we're dealing with a lot of fear and anxiety, where we're experiencing increased levels of cortisol and other stress hormones, things that make it difficult for us to dwell in a state of relaxation. When in reality, if you're here, it's because on some level, you have a desire to enter into a sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. And that is what our goal and our purpose is in doing this work that we do. Okay? But whether it is all of this stuff that points to chaos and confusion based on all of this stuff that is us versus them mentality, we see it all over the place. That's speaking to that illusion of separation, if you will. And I spoke to the whole thing dealing with the limitation aspect too. Both of these things are really strongly tapped into the frequency of fear. And fear, as I described it earlier, is one thing, but it also serves as an acronym for false evidence appearing real. We have a lot of false evidence that appears quite real to us. And so we end up tapping into what it is that we're experiencing as real in a way that makes it feel very real for us. We experience it as very real for us in terms of our outlook on life. We experience it very real for us in terms of our worldview. We experience it as very real for us in terms of how it affects us mentally, how it affects us emotionally, how it affects us even physiologically. Okay. And so these things, while they do affect us, they're affecting us based on the belief system that we are tapping into. And we're tapping into a belief system frequently based on what it is that we're being programmed or fed. And yes, there's a lot of information out there that is seeking to program our consciousness, that is seeking to program the way it is that we're seeing things, that is seeking to program us in terms of what we see as possible versus what we see as limitations upon what is possible. Things that are seeking to program us into this box of false evidence that appears real so that we can take the bait of this accuser and we can be essentially imprisoned in our minds and therefore limited in our lives, disconnected from the pure joy, bliss, and love that is divinely designed to operate and to flow freely in our lives and freely in our world. Okay? And so what do we do to affect change in a world that seems to be desperately resisting it? What is it that we can do to affect positive flows of energy, loving flows of energy, and ensure that love wins when it seems that there's a lot of hate spewing, right? When it seems that there is a lot of fear mongering. Well, guess what? Stevie Wonder was right when he says that hate knows love's the cure. That hate knows love's the cure. The Bible is right when it says that the darkness does not comprehend the light. And the truth is that in the presence of the light, the darkness disappears. But the thing is, if we end up having buy-in to the darkness, we contribute to the darkness. However, if we have buy-in to the light, we contribute to the light. And as I said earlier, part of my purpose on this planet at this time is to spread light through healing as an expression of God's love. Okay? And so let's get into the healing of that, kind of clearing away some of the blockages that stand between us and the healing that is available for us, clearing out some of the things that have us buying into the false evidence that appears real, tapping more deeply into the love, being able to see a world operating in a greater frequency of love, and thus through our consciousness be guided in ways that we can help bring that into actual materialization. Okay, I'm not just suggesting that we just visualize and do nothing, but that we act based on a divinely inspired vision. Okay, that's much more useful. It's much more useful. So let's go ahead and get into the healing. And by the way, shout out and much love to everybody who's here today. I'm not able to, I'm broadcasting from my phone. Last week actually was in California, and I was on the road during the Sunday Hope and Healing session. So we played something that I wasn't live during the live. Recorded something, and then that didn't work and I had to use something else. This week I'm out of town again, and next week I'll be out of town again during the Sunday Hope and Healing session. So please forgive me for not being able to see and acknowledge your comments right now. But please know that your presence is valued. And even though I can't necessarily see your comments and respond to them, I nonetheless do appreciate your comments here. I love you, and I appreciate you, and I value you. And I really honor and respect the fact that you think enough of yourself that you would show up here as a part of your own healing and as a part of the healing of the planet as a whole. So let's go ahead and get started with the healing. I'm going to start with a prayer. And if you want to be included in this healing, if you know anybody that you want to be included in this healing, just whether out loud or silently state your name. during this process. Okay. Most gracious, most divine, Mother, Father, everything God, source of all that is good, you who sees beyond all illusions and beholds the truth. I'm so thankful that you are a healer and that there is infinity in your healing capacity. And I'm honored and thankful for the privilege and the pleasure and the joy and the honor of being able to serve as a vessel of your healing. On the behalf of everyone who's stating their name silently or out loud right now, as well as anyone whose name is being spoken silently or out loud right now in the context of this healing. For the purpose of neutralizing the root cause of all cumulative effects of the fear-mongering and the large-scale attempts to keep us in a state of division, fighting amongst ourselves as humans, and creating schism of divide, if you will. From the point of the root cause and the entire energy field of every strand of DNA and every cell of our bodies, and transmuting that into and replacing it with such a profound confidence in the reality that love wins. And being able to see it, believe it, expect it, imagine it, and see the fulfillment of that brought into reality in the earth realm. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you. Thank you, God, so much for this gift of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. All right, so let's get into the actual healing. And so let's actually address us, those of us who are choosing to accept this clarion call, to receive and participate in the healing, so that we might more effectively be beacons of light and love in the world and help ensure that love wins on this planet, in this country where I live, or wherever it is that you are on the globe, to ensure that love wins. All right. So let's start off with looking at the collective impact of the fear mongering. Okay. So that collective impact is actually weakened and neutralized, and actually the part of us that in one way or another contributes even subconsciously to the growth and the spread of fear, because what it is that we may be seeing that might also have us in a fear-based state regarding the future or regarding the direction that we're moving in, collectively, as well as individually. So I want to strengthen that, infusing the areas within the subconscious parts of our mind, infusing that with infinite love, with infinite peace, and infinite possibilities of good. Let's strengthen that. Infinite possibilities of good as a right now reality. All right. Okay. There's a lot going on that's wanting to stand between where we are now and that. So let's strengthen that, boost that. A lot going on there. So let's kind of break that down a little bit. So let's look at the part of us that, has a tribe mentality. The tribe mentality in and of itself isn't bad. What it is that creates a challenge for us sometimes is when we make that tribe mentality our master instead of our servant. Okay, what it is that I mean by that is when we become so afraid of being ostracized by the group that we're not willing to take positions that may be um, different from that that is popular amongst the group. Okay, so I want to strengthen us in terms of the courage of our conviction, strengthen us to be able to have the courage of our conviction in order to be uh, really agents, powerful agents of powerful and positive change. I think there was George Bernard Shaw that said, and forgive me, I'm just quoting him, the language that he used was more patriarchal in nature. But he said, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man adapts the world to himself. Therefore, all progress lies in the hands of the unreasonable man. And, you know, just to kind of translate that in modern day terms that are a little bit more universal, real change, real impact comes with those who are willing to step outside of the box. So I want to strengthen us in terms of actually weakening the effect of the box that we've been programmed into, okay, to be able to create within us a greater sense of freedom. A lot of times there are ways in which we think we're free, but we're making decisions based on how we're guided in fear. Okay. Real freedom is when we see the truth of oneness and peace and wholeness and freedom for ourselves and everyone else. Okay. You're not really free until you're there. Okay. All right. So let's strengthen us in terms of optimizing our appetite for a sense of divine freedom. Not that which is masquerading itself as freedom, but true divine freedom. Okay. In a lot of ways, insecurity can mask itself as confidence. But confidence, real confidence, actually has a degree of humility that it comes with, because it doesn't have a need to prove itself. It just gets to be and operate in a state of peace with the awareness that God has got it all covered. Okay, so I want to strengthen us in terms of having a sense of relaxation with the awareness that God has us covered. Okay, let's strengthen us in terms of being able to really have that awareness that God has us covered. Okay, now again, that doesn't mean do nothing. Okay, sometimes God works through you and sometimes God works through me. But there's a difference between when God is working and when we are trying to do some stuff on our own and weaponizing God to say that because we're talking about God or we say God or we quote some scriptures or something, doesn't actually in and of itself make us godly or mean that we're actually representing God and what it is that we're coming from. Okay. All right. Some of you can read between the lines in what I'm saying with respect to that. All right. But to actually truly be able to operate from a sense of divine humility that is birthed in a divine confidence. Okay. A divine confidence that you know that you're safe, that you're protected, that you're loved, and everybody else gets to be safe, protected, and loved just as much as you. Okay. All right. There's no one on the planet more special than you are. Nobody. Not a single soul on the planet who's more special than you. And there's not a single soul on the planet who's less special than you. Okay. But it takes a degree of humility to be able to accept that. So let's strengthen us to be able to accept that and walk in that in a sense of genuine goodwill towards ourselves and our fellow members of creation. Okay. All right. Now I want to look at, for a moment, I want to look at the telling of history. Okay. History is really a compound word, his story. And what we call history, or what we're taught in history, is based on whose story it is that's being told. The version of history that we get depends wholly upon who it is that's telling the story. And an unfortunate thing that is experienced in the earth realm sometimes is that sometimes people will want to erase things from history and act like certain things never happened for whatever their own sometimes punitive or sometimes fear-based reasons for doing that might be. But to be able to strengthen us, for divine truth to be able to stand, and for that truth not to be weaponized, but for us to be able to use the truths that have existed historically, factual things that have existed historically, to be able to take from the things that have happened in the past, even if they weren't pretty, even if they weren't things that we would be proud of individually or collectively, but we're able to learn from those things and grow and do better. So I want to strengthen us all for that, to be able to own the past in order to healthfully move beyond the past, transcend the past. Okay. So with respect to that, I want to address fears of the past that we might project into the future. All right. So sometimes those things that happen in the past are experienced as very traumatic and is very painful. So we want to actually bring retroactively back in time. We want to bring that healing, bring the potency, the full potency of the healing to those points in history, those points in the past where pain and trauma were occurring, and then bring the healing not only to the past but to the current and into the future, the so-called current and into the so-called future. Okay. All right. And so let's also strengthen us to be able to adapt to a new reality, to be able to embrace and adapt to a new reality, particularly a reality that is more life-affirming for everyone. Okay? It's particularly strengthen us to be able to adapt to a new reality that is more life-affirming for everyone. Okay? Where love truly wins. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm talking about a love that looks beyond people's faults and sees what their actual needs are. Okay. I'm talking about a love that doesn't love based on conditions, but loves because it's love's way to do so. Okay. That loves in a way that is inspired by God's love for us. And with respect to that, let's address the idea of us believing that we deserve punishment. Okay. There's a scripture that speaks to, if you think that you deserve punishment, then you don't really quite understand what unconditional love is really all about. You don't really quite understand what the love of God is really all about. Yes, you and I and every single one of us has situations where we do things that are not in alignment with the pure love and divine light of God, that are not in alignment with the divine design that we were created to operate according to. And at the same time, there's grace for that. There's grace for us in the areas where we fall short, and there's grace for everyone else in the areas where they fall short. So let's address this thing within, the consciousness of human beings, of rather whereas some may prefer for the whole thing to be destroyed than for everybody to win. So we want to override that belief system and actually strengthen the awareness that just like misery loves company, joy loves company too. Love loves company too. Okay. All right. And whereas it may seem that it is easy for the darkness to expand, the light expands as well. And in the presence of the light, the darkness does what? It disappears. All right. So let's actually go within each and every one of us. And I'm going to ask you actually to do some of the work. I'm not going to be the only one doing some work for today's Sunday Hope and Healing session. I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of work. And I want to invite you to think of a place in your life, or think about something that you think about that brings you some trepidation, that brings you some anxiety, some discomfort, some concern. I want to invite you to travel to a place in your mind. I'm not asking you to create it. You've already been creating it. I'm just asking you to go to the place where you've been in your own way speaking negatively about other groups of people, whatever that other is. Okay. You might even be right in what you think. Okay. But let's actually transcend that need to be right for a need for greater harmony. Okay. What it is to truly be right is to rightly use your mind in a way that contributes to the greater good of yourself and everyone else, not just yourself. You're certainly not excluded, but not just yourself. You know, one of the things in developing this transcending the matrix modality that I wanted to ensure is that the healing wasn't transferred from one person to another, or sickness wasn't transferred from one person to another. I heard of a situation where somebody as a little girl had been healing people from the time of being a little girl, that there was a person who was sick, and then she was actually able to in some way effect healing for someone in the household. And they asked the little girl, you know, what happened. And she said that she saw a darkness in somebody. She described it as the black. She said, I took the black out. And she said, you know, she was asked, where is it now, sweetie? And she said, oh, it's over next door. And the people next door ended up getting sick. So they actually just took a darkness and moved it from one place to another. That's not real. That's not really contributing to the greater good. One group being in power and another group being disempowered. One group being healthy and another group being sick. That's not really true progress. And so in developing this modality of transcending the matrix, it's operating off of the premise that real healing happens in the collective context. Okay. We're not actually making progress if the pain and suffering is moved from one to another. We're actually creating real change and making real progress when the suffering is ended and replaced with well-being, period. Not the darkness moving from one place to another, but the darkness being replaced by the light. Okay. Not one person's hatred surpassing another person's hatred, but for that hatred to be transmuted into love. Our focus today is healing to ensure that love wins. Okay. So let's strengthen us in terms of our resolve for love to win within us. I remember as a child going to church services at Detroit Unity Temple. And at the end of the service, I've certainly experienced this many times since then, but at the end of the service, It always sang the song. And the song starts off with the words, "Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me." So let's strengthen us all for that change to happen within us, to really take true responsibility for being vessels of the change, vessels of the transformation, letting love win within us. How can we expect love to win in the world if we're not letting it win within us? So transmuting the parts of ourselves where we want to see other people lose, where we want to see other people suffer, where we want to see other people get theirs, and transmute that and replace it with wanting to see love win, wanting to see well-being win for us and everybody else. See, here's a law, that a spiritual law that not many people talk about. A lot of times, those of us who consider ourselves to be spiritually focused, we sometimes still have some different egoic things going on within us that we need to transmute and that we need to be able to rise above, because we're taking what it is that we know and using it in a way that isn't actually for the good, and it ends up actually harming us. And so when you actually have negative intentions towards someone else, if they're not if they're not open to receiving those negative intentions for themselves that you're sending towards them or that you're intending towards them, what happens is that they get returned to sender. If they're not received where you're sending them, those vibrations end up being returned to sender. And so that same ill will that you intend towards someone else, even if you're not necessarily speaking it, but you're holding it in your heart, it still will return to you. It's not an expression of self-love to draw to yourself a bunch of negativity and bad, dark energy. Okay. But that is nonetheless what happens when you send that out. Even if you're sending that out to people who you consider to be bad people. Okay. So I want to strengthen us in terms of our awareness of how these divine laws actually work, but even more significantly, to be able to operate in harmony with the way that these divine laws work, such that we're sowing seeds of goodness into the soil where we stand, where it is that we stand. Okay. You can't intend for anybody else anything other than what will return back to you. Okay. All right, so let's strengthen us to be able to accept that within consciousness, but also beyond that, to be able to operate from the space of self-love that makes us resolute in our decision and in our commitment to operate in a way that's actually going to serve our highest and best good. Okay? And the highest and best good of everybody involved. All right. Okay. Now, I'm not sure exactly what time it is. We may not go a full hour today. My intention is for us to go less than an hour today, but to nonetheless get a lot of healing packed in during the time that we are together. So something that I want to address is the things that we've kind of taken in from, one generation passed to another, that's taught us to have this sense of indignation towards the other, whomever that other might be. And let's transmute that indignation into a sense of healthy self-acceptance and a sense of healthy acceptance of the flow of good in the world. Okay. And I want to strengthen us to be able to actually forgive those whom we hold responsible. I'm going to say it just like it came up in my mind, which is how I believe many of you may be thinking it. Forgive others who we hold as being responsible for effing the world up. Okay? It strengthens us to be able to forgive others who we hold as responsible for effing things up. Okay? And forgive ourselves for holding on to those negative energies within ourselves, and to be able to instead replace that with a higher vision, with a higher, more elevated consciousness that allows us to be able to see through the eyes of love in a way that the love that we see with penetrates those, the light that we see with penetrates those who we perceive to be operating in darkness. You are pure love and divine light, beloved. That's what you are. If you're here today, it's because you believe that there's something that I've got something that I kind of understand maybe relatively clearly. Otherwise, you wouldn't be investing your time to be here today. But if you see me as someone who has some degree of wisdom, if you see me as someone who has any degree of spiritual insight whatsoever, I really want to encourage you to understand this is true, that you are pure love and divine light, independent of your mistakes, independent of your shortcomings, independent of what anybody else has ever said about you, or independent of what anybody else has ever done to you. You are pure love and divine light. You are made in the image and likeness of God, and you have an incredible degree of power at your disposal as such. Now, the way that you come to know and experiences yourself as pure love and divine light beyond just intellectually is when you get to a point where pure love and divine light are all you see. All right. Now, I recognize that might not always be easy for us when we are viewing things through the lenses of the matrix. And that's why we want to have that matrix cleared from our mind. We want to have it cleansed through, we want to have it transmuted from us, and to be able to see beyond it to where that's no longer eschewing our perception. Okay. We're able to see clearly through the eyes of truth. It's another scripture that says that love casts out a whole bunch of fear, casts out a whole bunch of sins, if you will, which is just missing the mark. Put another way, when we are seen through the light of love, when we're truly seen through the light of love, even those who do not recognize themselves as being operating in the light of love, even if we might otherwise not perceive someone as operating in the light of love, and we're able to see beyond that and see a greater truth beyond what it is that they may be tapped into or what it is that they may be living out, then we can affect real change. I'm saying this to you, beloved, as somebody who's had the wonderful privilege of being able to see this happen and work in the world, in people's lives. Okay? If there's anything I want you to get today, it's that. If there's anything I want you to get, period, that's what it is. There's an incredible amount of power in you. And you can either take and utilize that power to hold a vision of someone else in a state of darkness, or you can take and utilize that power to manifest within your reality a view of the pure divine innocence in another. If you can use that to see a good in the world that might not be easily detectable, you can bring that into reality. You can bring that into reality. So I want to strengthen us in terms of tapping into our spiritual potency, but not only tapping into our spiritual potency, because you can tap into your spiritual potency to F stuff up the way that many people have done, but instead using the power of your spiritual potency to create a whole new level of healing in a way that love wins. Mm, that love wins. And if you don't see love winning, all it means is that there is an aspect within you that needs to be elevated, that needs to be healed, that needs to be purified and transmuted, transformed. I've been blessed to do a lot of healing, and I don't work with sick people, at least not effectively. I only work with people who are whole and may not realize it yet. Okay? And the way that I'm able to be successful in the healing is I see them beyond their sickness and disease, and I see them in the state of their wholeness. Okay? And for all of us, that's a work in progress. All right? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close this out right now. God, thank you so much. Thank you so much for every soul who's chosen to be here with us today. For every soul watching this video. For every soul who's attracted and drawn to it. For every soul who wants to see love win and is willing to experience their own healing as a way to help bring that into fruition. Thank you for the healing that's happened today. And thank you for the healing that is continuing to build in each of us. We know that you make this healing available as an expression of your love for us. And we're so thankful for that love. Thank you for all of us who love ourselves enough to participate in this expression of your love and the expansion of your light. It is done. It is done. It is done. All right, beloved, that wraps us up for today. If you're not already subscribed to the Matrix Healing YouTube channel, I certainly invite you to do so. It's Matrix Healing, one word. Subscribe to that. You may want to click the notification bell so you know when we have new content that's going out. And I have to tell you, the value of these sessions goes so far beyond the words that are coming out of my mouth, because there's another level of healing that's happening that you may not necessarily see taking place. But there are things that we're doing during these Sunday Hope and Healing sessions to vibrationally create change, and positive difference energetically for everybody who's participating in it. So anyway, again, that wraps us up for today. And until we meet again, as we continue to enter into the sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, I bid you adieu with peace and love. And I'll catch you next time.